All right. Well, we've got George Papalexandratos. How's that for a Greek accent, George?
You sound Greek, I'll tell you.
I sound Greek. Well, my little Greek restaurants, they've got a little coffee shop now. I go there all the time. It's awesome. Well, here's just some interesting stats. Let's start off today's call with some numbers. Always a good way to start off. So, George, probably about an hour ago, you guys all got your wire, right? Everybody gets their wire on Thursdays. Here's how much Sidcor's paying you. George's was 29,887. That's not too shabby. I mean, I know it's not Fulkerson-esque yet, but he's climbing, he's on his way. But I think the one thing about George, I don't really know if anybody else can say this. I know I can't, but right now, George is on res, B2B, and retail at the same time. So if anybody's trying to multitask and you got a lot going on, he's on Amazon Key, he's on EDM retail, and he's on Verizon 5G res. So he's a busy guy to say the least, but $30,000 wire, that's not so shabby. He's got 9 owners in the org and 3 assistant managers. So, George is obviously a player. Everybody knows Mr. Papalexandratos. I asked George before the call his strength. So again, I'm just teeing this up and I'm going to pass the baton to George. I think this is interesting. He gave me 2. He's like, morning routine and overall weekly schedule is a strength. I mean, George is one of these uber organized guys now. Whether I send a text, email, George is active. He's engaged. You can tell he's on his game for sure. And the second piece was awareness, running the business I have versus the business that I once had, and his ability to pivot and put his energy in his business where it needs him. So I think that's interesting. We'll see where George goes with this after I've kind of teed him up here a little bit on his strength. So yeah. Mr. Papalexandratos, we're glad to have you. We look forward to hearing what you got for us for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the invite, Jamie. And it's great to be here with all of you. I was thinking about what I was going to share with you today, and I had a few points, and then I'm going to open it up and do whatever everyone wants to talk about. So a couple of things. I narrowed down to 4 points. The first one is we're talking about awareness. I believe that, you need to have a high worth a damn type of approach in life. Like, you need to be worth something. And the reason why I'm saying that, I'm sure most of you know Warren Buffett and his mentor, Charlie Munger, and business partner, that he said, like, the world is not crazy enough yet to reward undeserving people. And what I found early on in my career is that my levels of awareness were low. And I'll tell you why. There are like 3 types of people out there. You got the watchers, the wanderers, and the makers. And I can tell you, I was a watcher. I liked seeing Jamie Hepp doing great and everyone else. And I was like, man, they're doing awesome. And my level of awareness was low, and I was not really paying attention what I was doing. Then I was always wondering, oh, what about this business? What about this? What about the grass is greener there? What about this campaign? What about this city? What about this market? And overall, I think, like, I spent a lot of energy and effort not internalizing what's going on and not paying attention to me. And when you're a watcher or a wanderer, your levels of awareness are low. And I would ask you, like, what's your awareness? On a scale 1 to 100, can you tell yourself, like, where am I? And it's very healthy for you to do that. I believe we're in competition with ourselves, not anyone else. Every single day, I want to be better than I was yesterday. And that's why my morning routine, I'm like religious with it. I want to be better. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better leader. I want to be a better, in better mental, physical, spiritual shape every single day. So when I started, engaging myself to start getting the education that I needed to become more aware, I found very fascinating that a lot of the billionaires are not like full of original ideas. They just have a high levels of awareness, and they can understand an industry, or they can understand a business better than most people. So here's a couple of questions for you. Number 1, what is your deserving factor? Do you deserve to be successful? You have to convince yourself that you do. It's a hard sale. And number two question, would you bet on yourself? If Citgo comes knocking down, hey, we need so-and-so, would you say, oh, Brennan is right across the street. Oh, Sabs is right here. And you should go to them. Don't come to me. And I remember like when I was in the field, when I was like, give me every interview, give me every trainee, let me go in any territory, I'll murder it. And I remember how I started doing that when I was an owner too. Second point I want to share with you is this, that change is the law of life. And I believe it, I respect it equally as I respect freaking gravity. Change will happen. Everything is changing. Nothing is static. And during the pandemic, I think that a lot of people froze. And a lot of people said, oh, I hope things go back to normal. Versus them looking at what's going on and saying, oh man, things are changing. The landscape is changing. I gotta be innovative. Thing like Jeff Bezos says, like, there's no problem. There's only lack of innovation. Any problem that we have, we can innovate through. So the market doesn't care how smart you are, and some of you are way smarter than I am here. But it cares how changeable and how adaptable you are. So when I looked at like what happened the last couple of years, at the beginning, I did freeze. I got scared. I remember having dinner with my wife and I said, hey, if this continues and it goes for 6-7 months, we're going to deplete our savings. And I don't know. And if you get laid off, like, I don't know how things are going to be. And I remember like her eyes got teary, like she had like watery eyes. And I'm like, oh shit, this is like real. But I didn't use, that energy I didn't use that fear, if you may, paralyze me. I started thinking like, okay, the landscape is changing. How am I changing? How am I changing? It's fascinating. Like we have so many great examples, like, Thomas Edison, right? Died one of the wealthiest men out there because he had the ability to constantly keep on changing. Right? Colonel Sanders, like opened his first business at 65 years old. He could have like, hang it. So like, I'm done. I'm retired. I don't have to do that. Like 1,000 restaurants deep. And he kept on going. I don't believe change is a positive or a negative. It's what you make out of it. And if you embrace it, you'll make whatever you want to make out of it, right? I think like all of us here use Instagram, right? Sabs lives on Instagram. He's an Instagram celebrity, my brother, right? The story about Instagram is also fascinating, isn't it? You guys know what Instagram was originally when it was like being founded? It was a freaking address app. And all of a sudden the founders say like, hey, like this is not going to be as successful as us having like photos on because people are engaging on. And all of a sudden they go to their company and say, listen, fuck the address book. We're going 100% photos. And people were like, what? 180. Some of them left. Some of them said like, no way. Some of them like say like, there's no way I'm going to work with you anymore. Like you were the founder, the visionary, and now you're changing your whole like direction. And some of them stick around and like they end up selling for billions, right? To Meta. So Victor Hugo says, adversity makes man, prosperity makes monsters. And you know what? That's the damn truth, isn't it? We had it very good. And I'm not going to lie, like, things were going smooth. But when change happened, some of us buckled. Third thing I want to talk about is humility. I read a while ago Phil Jackson's book, The 11 Rings. I'm sure some of you have read it. Great book. Yeah. And I thought it was like fascinating how like Michael Jordan was so humble and coachable. I thought he was an egomaniac because that's how they presented, but he was so coachable and humble, especially in the front end of his career. And I think like, that's what really works in business. Now, I think like my style is to be extremely humble, outward and cocky as shit inwardly. And the reason why is because I can learn from every single person. Some people were doing better than me during the pandemic. Some people are doing better than me in business. I want to learn from them. I don't have to know all the answers. It's not possible. So I want to learn. Every single great person in history had mentors. So I have a story in an interview of you that I've read, the book by Sam Walton. His story, there's a phenomenal story about him. At a point that he was fairly successful, he went to visit another entrepreneur in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. And he was going with his family, and it was just like a vacation. And his family said, hey, we're going to go shopping. And then he said, oh, I'm going to wander around town, and I'll meet you at dinner. Well, dinner time comes, everyone's back home. The people, the very successful Brazilian man that is hosting them there is like, where's Sam? Nowhere to be found. Well, while they were talking about him, phone rings, and the police of Sao Paulo has arrested him. And they said, hey, we have this crazy old man here that we arrested. And they're like, do you know who you arrested? This man is a billionaire. He owns all Walmarts in the United States. What the hell you mean you arrested him? He's like, well, we got several complaints of this old man going into stores with a measuring tape, measuring at one aisle to another, shelf to shelf, trying to figure out, we don't know what he was doing. People got panicked. So his friend says, I'm coming right now to get him out. So he runs to the police station. He pays the bail, and he gets him out. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? He said, I went there and I started measuring because maybe they knew something that I didn't know. Maybe they have a better structure of how they have their retail stores than we have in the US. I just wanted to make sure that my stores are the best they can be. So this man is vacationing with his family in Brazil, and he's out there measuring freaking aisles. And he's a billionaire. So the humility that he had, the type of learning mentality, right, is something that we can all learn from. Now, as Jamie mentioned, I'm Greek, and I love Greek history, and Alexander the Great. What another, great example of a student. Aristotle was his mentor. He traveled with him around the freaking world as he was conquering the whole world. He had Aristotle and a library with him. I don't know how he managed that. But Aristotle was Plato's student, and Plato learned everything from Socrates. And as you can imagine, by the time he came to Alexander, he had so much information to give him and so many lessons. No wonder he became the great. But he was a phenomenal implementing everything that he was learning. So you got to find the right mentors. And if you want them on your side, if you want to get the most out of it, you have to implement what they're telling you. Or else they're not going to keep on giving you the advice. Now, how do you get good mentors? Well, here's something. You can judge a tree by its fruits. You can pay attention to people's patterns. It's not hard. Now, we live in a business, at least in our business, we're in sales. So guess what? People speak a lot, and they talk a big game. Everyone does, or else you can't be at sales. So you got to start paying attention, and you start noticing how people speak, and also if they're backing up what they're doing. Wealthy people ask a lot of questions. Every time I'm around them, they ask questions. They're curious. They want to know. Average people don't. My wealthy friends are knowledgeable. My average friends just have a bunch of opinions. I find that my mentors don't perceive environments are successful or unsuccessful. They just perceive them for what they are, and they're curious to figure them out. And I believe, like, that your end game will ultimately dictate your actions. Talking about my morning routine. Well, if I'm okay where I'm at right now, my morning routine is non-existent. Why would I wake up early in the morning to do my meditation, to read, to journal, to, like, get my brain and my body in the right state of mind? I don't have to. So I need to make sure, like, that I'm thinking about what I want. Now, I can only think bigger if I hang out with people that are thinking bigger than me. Most of the times what happens, you get around people that you're just comfortable with. So get around the people that are going to challenge you. Get around the people that are living and breathing what they're talking about. And I'm telling you, like, when you get around them, it inspires you. And Jamie said to me, hey, man, you've been doing so well the last couple of years. Well, other people are struggling. I think a lot of it has to do with what I just shared. I just was, and I am, hyper focused with my development, with showing up every single day the best I can, in every facet of my life. And when you do that, your deserve factor is through the roof. You don't even expect it. It's just going to happen. You're magnetic to it, and it just happens to you. So, Jamie, those are my points that I wanted to talk about. I'm not here to lecture. You got a lot of smart people here that probably know everything I said already. So.
Great, George. I'm going to start off by opening it up.
Let's do it. Let's dance.
That was good stuff, George.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, so a lot of good stuff that I think a lot of people can implement. But what would you do, like, when you're in the moment? Like, what did you do? I think I was on a call one time before, and you weren't doing so hot, and now you're doing much better. So I've seen your progress. So what do you do in the moment whenever you are dealing with the shit that you're dealing with? How do you get yourself out?
It's interesting. Like, I think, like, when things are not going my way, I have to remember that control is an illusion. A lot of the times, like, I think that, oh, I should control this. Oh, I have been here. I should, and I get myself in trouble. Also, the other thing is, I got to make sure I don't take things personally. It's one of the 4 agreements. When things don't go my way, my ego wants to say whatever excuse, and it wants to create whatever, kind of like protective mechanism. So I don't, in our reality, every time things are not going my way, I'm grateful that I have to learn some lessons. Wow, is that hard to do? Hell yeah, it's hard as hell to do that. But I'm always saying to myself, well, what do I have to learn here? Because I know what's happening right now is not the desirable result or where I want to be at. Why is this happening? And what do I have to learn? And I'm engaging my curiosity. I'm engaging myself at a level that now I want to find answers. I don't want to point the finger. Now, it's very easy to say, client, Jamie, Sabs, Sitcor. Well, the list could be big, man. We have so many targets to point at. But at the end of the day, I know I can't point at those targets because that is not, it's me. It's me. I am the decisive factor. I am the decisive factor. I want to, so does that give you a sense of where my head is when things are not going my way?
Yeah, no, 100%. That's super helpful. It makes a ton of sense.
I read this very often to myself, not to get very, it's a poem, and I'm going to read it to you because I read this probably myself like maybe a few times a week. It's from Goethe, and it says, I have come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it's my responsibility that decides whether a crisis is escalated or de-escalated, and a person is humanized or dehumanized. If we treat people as they are, we make them worse. If we treat people as they ought to be, we help them become what they're capable of becoming. I read this shit all the time to myself.
What's that called?
It's a poem. I'll send it to you.
That's good.
And so when things don't go my way and I read this, it's like a double slap in my face, you know? It's like, what are you talking about? The client. What are you talking about? The market. What are you talking about? Recruiting. What are you talking about? COVID. What are you talking? Stop. You're trying to soothe yourself. You're trying to be your mother, your father to yourself. Stop. You're not a kid anymore. You're not 8 years old. Come on. So, I mean, that's normally what I've done. Now, I get it. It does not feel good when you're in a slump or things are not going your way. I get it. And I've gone through the ups and downs, and I understand. But what I'm not okay with is me accepting that and me feeling a victim of that. What else,
Georgie,
Jamie?
what was
Yeah.
the last book that just slapped you?
You know, I've been reading, a ton lately. In general, I've been reading a lot, but I started
No.
reading this book for awareness, the positive intelligence. Part of it is because my brother-in-law is an executive at Nike, and every year they sponsor one course for them. And this last year, he said, "Hey, I know you've done a lot of work on yourself, and through therapy and everything." And he said, like, "Hey, read this book. I think it's going to really help you with your people." And he gave me a nice framework. And I started having my owners and some of my top leaders go through the test and go through the book. And I really like how he creates very, very good levels of, again, awareness. I found that my saboteurs and also my PQ of, like, how sometimes I operate from a negative standpoint versus a positive standpoint. I'd never measured that. And if you would ask me, Saps, I would say, like, I'm overall a very positive guy. But what I found out is that my gut instinct is more of my knee-jerk reaction is a negative one. And I didn't know that. And when I did it, like, I said, oh man, that's so interesting. I didn't know that. So it really made me, 0.5% more aware, I would say. And I really enjoy teaching it right now, or going through it with my people. So this year, this book has been pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's Con, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I read that a few years ago. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And the tests are online too. You can do his test of the saboteurs and the PQ online for free. That's very good.
So George, why are you all over the map with campaigns? Like, again, I could be wrong. I don't know anybody who's ever ran an ICL that did retail, B2B, and res at the same time.
Yeah, and the traditional advice, Jamie, is don't do that, right? That's what we've heard. Like, oh, stay in one program, bada, 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 bada. It all depends of, like, what flavor you want to run it. Like, I just know how I operate the best. I know that I like being engaged and feel like, that I'm, like, working hard. It's part of, like, my MO. I played sports in a high level. I used to, like, it's just like, that's how I am. I never see myself, like, doing one thing and working 4 hours and being happy that way. I just don't know. It's like, I like having my brain work. I like being engaged with different issues, different problems, different people. So when I originally was doing Amazon, then the retail opportunity came along, and I said, okay, I'm gonna get on retail, and I did. And then when Verizon 5G, I saw an opportunity there to get on the 5G program, and I decided like, hey, I'm gonna do that too. Now I had the right people to go on the programs, like I had the right people to do it with. I wouldn't like do it if I didn't have the right folks. So I thought it would be good. And I know Rich and Vera was like, whoa, you got so much on your plate. How are you gonna do your org? How are you gonna do this? If you're systematic and you have good systems and you can execute your systems and you have good checks and balances and you take time to prepare, it's not hard to do it. The thing when we get in trouble is like, when we don't surround ourselves with people that can handle some of the stuff that you're doing. So I have a great office manager administrator that she handles all the administrative work. So that alleviates me from me having to do like being in the weeds on things. I love my best self is when I work with the guys and developing them and spending time with them. That's like where I work the best. When I have to do things such as like onboarding, and I can't. If I have to like start managing recruiters, I'm terrible at it. I know I'm not good at it. I have a whole I have right now 28 recruiters. I don't like with my side recruiting business. I don't manage those. My business partner does because she's awesome at it. So I just created systems that also allowed me to do more versus me be boggled in one thing and also not feeling inspired. Now, you got to figure out who you are. If your level of awareness is low, then you'll be like, I can do everything. And guess what? It's going to be a dumpster fire. Or you can like look at it and say like, hey, I can handle one, but I can do it very well. And then that's you. Stick with that.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. I mean, I could be wrong, but when COVID happened, I think you had 4 reps, if I'm not mistaken. In
Yeah.
2020, March of 2020, George had 4 guys.
Yeah, not fun.
I mean, that's quite an amazing turn of events for you, George.
Well, in 2020, what happened? I think I had one of my best years from 2020 July when we got on retail on Amazon all the way till the end. I think I had my best half year that I've had. I think we did almost $850,000 and then next year we did over $1 million. And I think we're in base around to do $1 million again this year, over $1 million. We should pick it up. Yeah. So I think Jamie, I think the landscape of the business might for a lot of people felt tougher. But for me, I saw a tremendous amount of opportunity, and a lot of you on this call have done the same.
That's great, George.
Yeah.
Well, George, we appreciate your example. You have a unique example of, you're a busy man all over the map, but yeah, you have found a way to really systemize and manage yourself, and you've grown a lot. I mean, so well done, George. We really appreciate you hopping on today's call. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.
See you guys.